Welcome to the SCPC high-level overview of our site. The purpose of this video is to take you through the site, allow you to see what we have, and also be able to allow you to analyze if these are things that you're going to need. So how the site is set up is we are completely cloud-based. As long as you have access into a browser, you're going to have an opportunity to go in and receive the information. Since we are cloud-based, everything is permissions. We have 3 levels of permissions, the first one being an org admin. That org admin will be able to change things about your organization and what is seen within. We have project admins. Project admins will be able to see everything within the project and change things that people see within. And then we have the users within that project, which become the project members. Our site is set up as a folder-driven site, which allows you to provide permissions based on each project. So that means that if you have a design build type situation and you might want to give your subcontractors a little bit more visibility, that you can completely do that based on one project, and every other project have different permissions. So through the top bar we have the projects button here. This allows you to go ahead and find projects quickly. We have video learning. Video learning allows you to see all of our videos. These are 2-3-minute videos with more in-depth videos on the right side. Contact us. We utilize Freshdesk as our support medium. That means that if you have any questions, any report requests, improvements, anything that you want, there will be a ticket generated, and so you can track your ticket, and more importantly that our support team can track your ticket. Release notes. We do quarterly larger releases where we're going to introduce bigger things into our system. Between these quarterly releases, we're also going to be introducing any updates or patches that we need to do, and all of that will be listed in the release notes. As far as how we are laid out, on the left side we have a ladder here. Under your organization, you'll have, I'm part of 3 organizations, you'll have locations. Locations can be used as physical office locations, types of projects. Can also be used for PM's names, anything that you want to contain specific types of projects. So just think of it as a holding tank for any type of project that you want to have. It also allows you through template projects to have different printouts. So if the Badger region should need different printouts than Texas, you can allow every project within there by utilizing the templates to utilize those custom reports. So that's how locations are set up. You don't need to utilize them if you don't want to, but that's just another way to find your projects. Under my favorite projects, that's going to be a short listing of them, so you don't need to go through your organization, the location to finally get to the project. They'll just be a quick reference to that project. So I'm going to go into Big City Building, and this will be a layout typical to every job. We have the project setup where project defaults. These are going to be your return times on RFIs, submittals, as well as any markups that you might want to apply to your change orders. We have the project members, as I mentioned earlier. This is where you're going to bring in people. They need to be users in order to receive emails throughout the system. And what that means is that you're going to assign a username and password one time to anyone that you want to have access into the system. List management. This is available at the organizational level as well as the project level. This allows you to change a lot of the drop-downs that I'll show you throughout the system. Subcontractor performance evaluation. This would be like a post-construction meeting. You can evaluate anyone that may have been a part of this job, not specific people, but companies. So over the years, you can go ahead and have an average rate calculated. The integration system setup and the advanced list management. These are if you are connected with 300, 100, or any other type of API driven. And then we have events and messages, is a to-do and a calendar. Cost management we'll touch at the end. This will be where we are, if you're a standalone, you're building out your budget, or we're reading it in if we're connected. We have the contract info for schedule of values, commitment info for any of the commitments that you're writing, whether they're purchase orders or subcontracts. Summary info, that's going to be our snapshot of the job financially. We have forecasting, forecast at complete. We have commitment events, which are going to be change orders that change your commitments. We have contract change orders, which are going to change your schedule of values and your budget. And then we have pencil draws, which is going to track that 702, 703 finalization. Under project management, this is actually where I'm going to start, but this is going to be where the field goes and records the majority of information flow throughout the project. In the report section, these will be logs. Throughout the site, you'll be seeing a print and a report option. The print will give you a printout of exactly whatever you're on, where a report will give you a log of those items. Under documents, this will be a final repository for documents. It's going to give you a chance to have your current plans out there, specs, anything that you might want to put in general photos, and allow the people out in the field to have the same information that the field has. So what I'm going to do is start by issues. Issues is a good place to start because it's going to be a general overview of how our site's laid out and give you a good understanding of what happens. So when I mention we're folder driven, this is what it means. You can create folders. Each one of these is a folder to hold things within. So you can change the names, you can delete them, you can add them throughout the project. So if I want to track things under a QA/QC type of a header, I can create a folder and then I have 2 items within that. When I click on that issue, left side throughout our site is typically going to be our required information. Right side is going to be your optional. At the top here, you can see that you can create a potential change order from issues, RFIs, and punch lists. At a minimum, all you need is a subject as well as a question, and it can move on from there. But to continue to go down, there are a couple things that are going to be common throughout the site. We have a discussion and reply. What that is that's going to track who says what, when, and what is said throughout the site. Going down further, we have a drag and drop to attach files. This is going to allow people to attach things. If this issue happens to want to track schedules perchance, then you could drop that 2-week look ahead in here. CC users. Throughout the site, you can add CC users by hitting the blue button. That's going to be people who don't want to, or excuse me, people that want to be up with what is being done, whether it's a discussion or the closure of that, but they're not directly responsible for that item. So anywhere a CC user is put, that would be the philosophy. And then at the very bottom, we have all the documents that were actually attached to this. So a good way to think about the issues is it sits between the punch list and the RFIs, where an RFI would be a contractual change and a punch list is at the end. An issue is in between. So I'm going into my punch list, again folder driven, so you can set this up however you want. What I'm going to show you is that there's 2 ways to track punch lists. Ultimately, they go down to the same input form, but I have unit A01 here and unit A01 here. You can see that this is a subfolder. So if you want to create a folder to track multiple punch list items within that folder for unit A01, then that would be this methodology. Or you can create one punch list item and track multiple things for that unit. So I clicked on a punch list, same as the issues. The left side will be your required, right side will be optional. Here's another purchase order. This is where you could list the multiple items that are part of this punch list. The first difference with this and an issue would be the 4 different statuses, where an issue is 1 to 1. This has 4. We have multiple responsible parties, so if many people need to fix something, this is what you can put in there. Other than that, the discussion section is going to remain the same, as well as the CC users and the drag and drop. Punch list is available in our mobile app, so if I was able to take pictures or wanted to, they would be appended to here, and it's a bilateral communication. Moving over, I'm going to go to meeting minutes. Meeting minutes, same thing, folder driven, so you can go ahead and create these folders for what kind of meetings you want to hold. Within that folder, we have agendas and meetings. It doesn't matter if you use one or the other or both. You can choose what fits your company best. Within the meetings and the agendas, we have 4 different buttons. One is to delete a meeting if you want to get rid of it. We have create agendas, so if I want to go to an agenda from a meeting or vice versa, you can click the blue button. Copy will copy everything within that meeting and create a new meeting, and then email will email everyone that's an attendee that specific meeting. Within the meeting, OAC 67, you have the header information as well as all the attendees. Coming down, you have your meeting minutes. You can see it from here which ones should be hidden when you click on them. And then you can also see which ones have a status of closed or not. But if you're to have this meeting around the table, you'd click on number 1. That'll bring up that meeting minute, and you can have that discussion. So whatever you want to discuss at that time, you can change that. When you're done changing and reviewing that, you can hit next, and what that'll do is save anything that you may have typed in here and take you to the next issue. You'll see that it went to issue number 3 instead of 2. That's because we have complete and hidden. Although this is complete, it's still being shown because some companies like to complete and keep that history throughout the project. Or as number 2 was, you can click on Mark as Hidden, and that will hide it from being displayed throughout the meeting. A couple other things you might want to note within the meeting minutes is that we have responsible parties very similar to the punch list. And we have drag and drop areas here, so you can attach attachments here for each specific item if that makes sense for your company. To get back, I'm just going to hit update, but in order to progress, you just keep on clicking that next button and that will take you through all the meeting minutes. I'll go ahead and print this meeting minute out so you can see what that looks like, but before I do, I just want to explain what we have here. We have the print and the reports. As I mentioned, this print is going to print everything that I am on within this meeting. We are Crystal Reports. That gives us the flexibility to customize any of the reports and customize them down to the project level. But here you can see the general layout of what this looks like. We have meeting minutes with the attendees and anything that may have been recorded within that minute. So those are meeting minutes. I'm going to continue to come over to the right here and go to submittals. In the submittal process, we have 2 different ways that you can do them. You can write submittal packages straight away and have the items in there, or you can utilize the folder structure. A couple reasons why people like utilizing the folder structure is number 1, they just like to know where their specific items are. So for your finishes, you can see you have 7 finish submittals without having it in one long list. Another reason is since we are folder driven, we have the flexibility to allow subcontractors to create their own submittals. And when they do that, you can give them access only to see their own. So that'll give them the opportunity to forward that on to you. You can review it and then forward that into your structure. So those are a couple reasons why people like using folder driven stuff. Or you can have packages listed in one long list. If you click on a package, you can have 1 item per package or multiple. It doesn't really matter to us. It's going to operate the exact same. You have the package information up top with the items. If transmittals are sent out of the system, the transmittals are right here. And then when any attachments may be used, they are all attached in this one location. I'll talk about workflow and cost management, but just know that it is available in submittals. So how this works is that you set up your items by clicking Add Submittal Item. Once you have the ones you want to have done, you can hit Submit for review. So I'll go ahead and I'll send this out. I'm going to put everything on there as well as the document. I'm going to hit Submit for review. We utilize transmittals, so that's going to create a transmittal with all those items. It's going to populate based on how I set up my folders, the to's and the froms, and then this allows you to change the remarks. Once you hit transmit, it's going to send that transmittal with all the applicable information off to whoever's in the to box. You can have a long listing of all the items that have been sent out, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up that email that was sent to my Gmail account and show you how the reviewing company would go ahead and respond to that specific email. So here is a sample of a Gmail. This would be received in whoever's account it would be. You have 3 different links here. The top one is a transmittal, which will take you to the system. We have a return and respond, which is considered a quick reply. Just know that this one can be hidden if you have a RFP that requires a secured login. And we have a download the PDF. So the reviewing company most likely is going to click on download PDF, take a look at it, stamp it up, mark it up, do what they do. And then they'll click on the return and respond. When they do that, that's going to open up in the default browser a window giving them the opportunity to change the statuses. So I can see 2 that I sent out already had status. I'm going to go ahead and change these other ones. That one's approved. I'll flow that down and maybe change that last one. Instead of being approved, I want that to be revised and resubmit. You also have the opportunity to add attachments. So if I wanted to come here and drag and drop something, I can drag and drop that and say this is the stamped item. Hit upload. And then a reviewing company would transmit that back, and what that's going to do is send an email to everyone that's part of this. The CCs, the originator of that specific item, will get an email telling them that they have a response. So I'm going to travel back to that submittal package through the transmittal just to show you what that response looks like. So here you can see the two that I made approved and the last one that I saw revise and resubmit. We list what the next action would be. If these are create revision, you can click on those two items, create that revision, which would allow you to start with those, submit for review on the revised item. So you can see the original is maintained where the second one is the revision one. The due dates are filled in as soon as I hit submit for review. We also have the opportunity to return to the sub. That'll just create a transmittal very much like the reviewing company transmittal, but it will pre-populate with whoever is in the submitting contact list here. So you can email the approved or revise and resubmit items to them. If I come down, you can see the transmittals that I sent out today, as well as any of the documents that were attached. On the other side of submittals, we have expediting logs. These can be procurement logs, submittal registries, whatever you might want to call them. In the end, what they are is it's a way to have you ping people in order to stay on schedule of submitting. I'm going to show you another way that they're utilized as well, but most commonly this is it. So if I come into Division 6, you can see all the items that I want to submit for Division 6 under CSI code 6100. I have these two items and they're currently in this pending status. What you can do is you can select these items and assign a responsible party. When you do that, the responsible party will be updated, and what that's going to do is 2 weeks before this required date, 1 week, and then when it's due, they will receive an email out of the system. So that's going to keep them on track, and when they do submit that, and this is ready to become an actual submittal, you can come back and go ahead and click on this and hit Create Submittal. Now remember, this is all done through the import of an Excel spreadsheet, so there was no typing except for the original creation. But then I can select where I would like to put this submittal package. So I want this to go in 6. I'm going to make this 6100, 900, and hit Create, and you'll see that the package is created just as it looked when I had the submittal package methodology. So here I just go through the same steps. I would click on the submittal items, I would click on the thing I want to send, submit for review, and it brought me to the submittals place. If I'd go back to that expediting log location, I just want to show you that it does track, as well as the report, which ones are pending, yet to be sent, and then also the statuses as those things are sent out. So if I come back in here and I click on number 6, what used to be pending is now converted to a submittal with a link back. Another way that an expediting log can be utilized would be a closeout. Within the closeout, it's going to be the same type of an import, but in here, instead of having CSI codes, I'm going to just show a sample of my subcontractors, warranties, O&Ms, as-built, whatever you're trying to collect. The philosophy is the same. Whoever's responsible will receive an email 2 weeks, 1 week, and then when it's due over here. We have RFIs. We can provide a structure. Just know that you don't have to have multiple folders in here. I'm going to show you what I believe is the strength of having them, but you can have RFIs directly as a contractor. But since we are folder driven, you can have your subcontractors create their own RFIs. And what they would do is they would create, or you provide them access only to see their folders if you'd want, and they would create their own RFIs. When they create this RFI, and here I'm going into the flooring, which has 27 of them, they would send this out to the PM of the project. That PM would have the chance to either close it if it needed to go no further, or they can forward that RFI into their own RFI log, which it's done previously. What that does is that copies everything from flooring RFI 27 into contractor number 93 and allows you to send this on to the architect or reviewing company to get that final answer. The nice thing about doing that in this methodology is for 2 reasons. The first one is that the discussion section between you and the reviewing company is separated between you and the subcontractor. So you can go back and forth. Just because there are answers doesn't mean that it closes out, so this allows you to have that banter back and forth. The other reason why it's nice is when there is an answer that is marked, it will close the RFI, mark the date it was closed, and send that answer back to the subcontractor, who is ultimately the flooring subcontractor. And that will update their specific discussion section down here. So if I come down to the bottom, I have my discussion reply. Again, you don't need to use the 2 levels if you don't want to, if it doesn't make sense for your specific project, but the input of the RFIs is going to be exactly the same whether you start at the subcontractor level or the contractor level. The last thing within our project management module would be daily logs. RFIs and daily logs are also available within the mobile app. You can have folders for morning, evening, foremen, subcontractors, whatever makes sense for your structure. You can have separate daily logs being performed within that folder. What a daily log looks like is when you create them, it's going to say who created them with the weather. You have the opportunity to type in what comments, materials, equipment, and visitors were there. It also records who was out on site, so you can add activities or delete them from here and record how many people they had out on site. You can also drag and drop, or with the mobile app, go ahead and take pictures, and all that's appended and talks back and forth. As with everywhere else within the site, we have the print and the reports. I just clicked on the print to show you the daily log printout. What this is going to do is take the information that was just input there and create that report. So we have the materials, we have the weather, we also have the activities that were there. We have the amount of people per company as well as the day in total. If I come down, we also have the photos that were taken. Do note that you can edit photos as well after they're taken using that edit image. And that edit image is common throughout the site. So coming back, that is our project management module. In the reports module, these would be all the logs. I'll go into our submittal log just to show you while I'm describing a couple other things. So in the logs, you're going to be presented with different ways to either present and or filter the items. I'm just going to go ahead and print the submittal log out the way it is. And so when you bring up this log, just note that any of these logs that are in that report section can be created with email schedulers. We intentionally do not send emails out of the system other than within the expediting log, because we don't want our emails to be spammed. In the heat of the project, you can imagine that you're probably getting over 50 emails a day from a system that is pinging you about things that are coming due or are overdue. So with that email scheduler, you can schedule to have this submittal log only have the ones that are out for approval sent every Monday at 8 a.m. before your Tuesday meeting, if that makes sense. But this is the standard printout of the system, the package, the items within the package, when it went out, when it's due back, when it did come back, if you sent it off to the sub, status, ball in court, as well as how long they had it and if it was overdue. So again, the main thing to know in the reports section here is that any of these reports can be put out as email schedulers. And the last thing in here is an activity log. We do track everything that happens within our system, so any click, any upload, anything like that, we do record who does it, what time it's done. We also track those emails that go out if anyone clicks on those links. The last section down here would be the documents section. These 6 links are going to be standard. Once you get inside of these links, you can go ahead and customize as much as you want. Again, the thought process between the document section is that it is a final repository for the documentation that you want everyone to see. Since subcontractors, architects, engineers, anybody that's outside of your company is free and unlimited, you want to make sure that they're receiving the same information that you want them to receive. So I came into the drawings. This is completely arbitrary the way it's set up. I'm going to the current plans and I've broken them out into discipline. If I go into that architectural discipline, I have my drawings here, and with these drawings you can also click on here and see all the revisions within. So even though A01 is listed once, I can see that there have been 10 revisions to that specific drawing. So again, everyone out in this site will have access to the most current drawings. They don't need to worry about knowing that. It'll have the issue dates where it was. They can download them, either singular or complete. And when they download it, it will create the same folder structure that you've created within the system, so there's a consistency. One last thing I would like to note about our system within the documents is that we have notifications. Well, I have 2 notifiers on here, and what that does is when you go ahead and slip sheet things into this set, it's going to automatically send out notifications to whoever is listed down here. For current plans, addendums, bulletins, things like that, you're probably going to want to make sure that all your subcontractors are listed under here so they automatically get responses when you slip sheet or add something to this folder. So there's no more need to go and email everyone or call them and say, hey, we got an addendum. They automatically know as soon as you update it within your own plans. That philosophy is going to be true in any of these document sections here. So just know that you can add notifications. You can also add restricted folders. So if you want to have only your own folder that no one else can see, you can certainly create that as well. The last section that we have here is the cost management section. We have the estimate info. This is going to be your budget or how you plan on spending it. I'll have an additional column here if you are synchronized. It'll be an accounting one. That's really a double check just to make sure whatever has been performed in our SEP system, that it's also showing up in your accounting system. We have your original estimate as well as any pending and approved change orders, in which will give you your total estimates. We do handle extras as well as quick adds. What an extra would be is if you need to use the cost code multiple times within one project, that would be the utilization of an extra. Or we can quick add, and what that means if I wanted to add cost code 1020 into here, you could do that through a change order and it'll add it in our system as well as push it back if you're a synced project. Under cost code overview, it's going to be the same estimate info, but we're going to bring in all your commitments against that as well as any job to date costs if you're synchronized. If you click on the drop down arrow, that's also going to show you where and what categories are available for that specific cost code and what costs are being applied to that. Going back home, the contract information, this is going to be your schedule of values. It's going to be the same type of grid, pending and approved change orders within our system. We do bring in, if you are synchronized, the total billed and retained. If some of these fields do not make sense to you, you can save your persistence columns here. Coming straight along, we have commitment info. So these would be all your commitments, whether there's POs or subcontracts. If they're POs, it will say yes. If they're subcontracts, it won't say yes. If you are synchronizing, you'll always have a sync time when that went back and forth. In this grid, we have our pending and approved change orders again, as well as amount invoiced, retained, and paid if you are synchronized. To show you what one of these looks like, I'll go into one. We have your numbers, the vendors from your address book or your user groups that you've created, scopes, extension or exclusions, inclusions, those are all unlimited. We have a lot of fields here that can tailor the way your reports look when you print them out. We have workflow, as I mentioned. You can apply multiple workflows to a specific type of contract. So if you have to have different people review one type of contract versus another, that's where you do it. This is where you build out where that contract ties back to your budget. And so these are your cost codes from your budget, description of what that is, and what the amounts are for that specific thing. You can also add new lines, as this says new line here, to a commitment after the fact. If that's gone back and you already put invoices against it, through a change order you can add items to your commitments. Going through our change orders, we have contract side change orders and commitment side change orders. So your contract change order is going to affect your schedule of values and your budget. I'm showing 4 here, but we actually have 9 different ways you can do change orders. We don't care how many steps you do. You can go from a 3-step PCO, COR, CO. You can write change orders right away. It doesn't really matter. Again, whatever your SOPs are within your company, and if you don't have any, we'll help you through that. You can perform that. We do have internal events as well. This would be a budget cost transfer within your own budget. So if you need to move money around your estimate, that's where you could do that. A change order will affect the revenue side as well as the budget, so that's the only difference between the two. If you are a synchronized project, you'll see when you sync down to it. I'm going to go into a change order. No matter what stage I'm at, whether that's a PCO, COR, internal, they're all going to look identical. It's just going to be the stage in which they're at. If you are a synchronized project, the change order internal event, those are the only 2 items that will synchronize back into your system. You can select a contract item, put a subject and a scope if that makes sense. You have your workflow available here, which is a go, not a go, no go, anywhere in the system. It's keeping track of everyone that has or you want to have eyes on this system or this item. You can see this one was summarized from a change order request. It shows you the items that were summarized to it, and then if you had any applicable markups that would apply to that. You can add attachments and track all the transmittals that come out of the system as well. On the commitment side, it's going to be identical. The only difference is that we hold the change orders within that subcontractor's folder. But you'll see once I get in there, you're going to have this PCO, COR, COs, the listing of those change orders, and the change order will look identical other than the commitment being here instead of contract and the contract line item being here instead of the cost code. The last two items that we have is a forecast. Forecast is a forecast at completion. We bring in your estimate, your costs, with a balance complete, which will be the balance between the two. Since this is a forecast at completion, we're already going to consider any commitment that you've written invoice at 100%, so that will already be included in your total cost. If you're synchronized or your import direct cost, that will be listed in your non-commitment costs, like credit cards or things like that. And then we have the forecast and risk and notes. So anything that is highlighted here, that allows you to edit those fields. So being that it's a forecast at completion, I'm just estimating how much more above this total cost I'm going to have to spend to get out of this job. It's generic on purpose, so it's going to be units times unit cost gives me my forecasted cost to complete. It can be lump sums, it can be quantities, it can be also production rates, because we do hold your rates here, original versus actual. And that will give you a variance for that specific line item. We also have risk. Risk can be applied, and the best way to think about that is how much risk is involved in how much you're forecasting here. So if you have not completed a lot of this, this one's balanced complete is over 100% because I've over allocated it. But if you had any risk involved in what you're forecasting, you could apply it here, and basically what it's going to do is reduce your variance. At all times, we recommend putting in notes so everyone who may or may not come in can see what you're doing. We do hold all previous forecasts in the drop down here, so if you ever want to go back and check that out, you can. We have two printouts, a detail and a summary. Let's click on the summary. The detail will print exactly what's here. The summary is going to give me the same information, but summarize it through the categories. Again, these are all crystal reports, so if you do need to change something, you certainly can. But here's a quick snapshot of the job. Right now I'm going to make $228,000 based on my forecast. So the last place I'm going to go is going to be the pencil draw. The pencil draw is going to have 3 tabs. It's going to have a contract tab, commitment tab, and a cash flow. The contract tab is going to pull from the contract info and allow me to track the money that I am requesting between me and the owner. The commitment tab is going to be the money between me and anyone that I have a contract with in the system, or the commitment info tab. Then cash flow is going to be a comparison between the two. So if I just quickly click on the pencil draw number 8 for the commitments, this will list all of the commitments at the time that that pencil draw was created. It's going to track my original approved change order separately and allow me to say how much I'm requesting by percentage and or by money. I can also vary the amount retained percentages, so as I'm getting closer to the end of the contract, I can reduce it, which will reduce the amount retained. We have an export, a print draw, as well as transmit. Transmit allows you to email, so if I wanted to email all my subcontractors, hit transmit. That'll send an email with a link to give them back-end access only to their one commitment. So the concrete company will only have the opportunity to request what they want to be paid. On the contract side, it's going to look identical. The only difference is that it's going to record the schedule of values for that time versus the commitments. So if I go into pencil draw number 8, this would be the current value of my schedule of values. It's going to record anything previously that I've requested, as well as the approved change orders against that. So you just request something different, just like you do on the commitment side, by hitting edit, changing the values either by percentage or dollars, and that will create your next draw. We can export. We do have a print draw as well. What that allows you to do is create an invoice in something similar to a 702, 703, print it out for either that contract or all the commitments that you have there. So you can see that here.